The morning sun broke through the
my
tall windows of
God.
Westmore Palace. Queen Catherine stood in her private chambers, holding a letter with shaking hands. Her heart beat fast. The paper felt heavy, even though it weighed almost nothing. "Your Majesty, the council is waiting." Her lady-in-waiting, Margaret, said softly from the doorway. Catherine looked up. Her blue eyes were tired. She had not slept well for 3 nights. "Tell them I will be there in 5 minutes." Margaret bowed and left the room. Catherine walked to the window and looked out at the palace gardens. The roses were blooming. Red, white, and pink flowers covered the bushes. It was beautiful. But Catherine could not enjoy it today. She thought about her daughter, Princess Elena. The young princess was only 7 years old. She had golden hair and green eyes that sparkled when she smiled. Elena loved to run in the gardens. She loved to laugh. She was full of life and joy. But everything was about to change. Catherine folded the letter and placed it in her dress pocket. She took a deep breath and walked out of her chambers. Her long purple gown swept across the marble floors. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. 2 royal guards stood outside the council room. They wore red uniforms with gold buttons. Their faces were serious. When they saw the Queen, they opened the heavy wooden doors. Inside, 12 men sat around a long table. They were the king's advisors. They wore dark suits and looked important. At the head of the table sat King Richard, Catherine's husband. His face was stern. His gray beard made him look older than his 45 years. "Your Majesty," the men said together, standing up and bowing. Catherine nodded. She walked to her seat next to the king. Her hands were still shaking, but she hid them under the table. "We must discuss the matter of Princess Elena," Lord Harrison said. He was the chief advisor. His voice was cold and businesslike. Catherine's heart sank. She knew this conversation was coming, but she was not ready. "The neighboring kingdom of Northmore has made their offer," Lord Harrison continued. "Prince Marcus is 16 years old. He will be king one day. If Princess Elena marries him, our 2 kingdoms will unite. There will be peace. There will be trade. Our people will prosper." "She is 7 years old," Catherine said quietly. Her voice cracked. The wedding would not happen until she turned 16. Another advisor said, "This is just an engagement agreement." "It is how things are done, Your Majesty." King Richard had been silent until now. He looked at his wife. "Catherine, we must think about the kingdom. This alliance will protect our people. It will secure our future." "What about Elena's future?" Catherine asked. Her voice was stronger now. "What about her happiness? What about her choice?" The room went quiet. The advisors looked at each other. No one spoke about happiness or choice in matters of royal marriages. It was always about duty. Always about the kingdom. "Your Majesty," Lord Harrison said carefully, "you were married at 17. It was arranged. And look at you now. You are a fine queen. You have done your duty well." Catherine felt tears coming to her eyes, but she fought them back. Queens do not cry in council meetings. She remembered her own wedding day. She had been so scared. She did not know Richard. She did not love him. But over time, they had learned to respect each other. Was it love? She was not sure. But it was duty. "I want to speak with my daughter before any decision is made," Catherine said firmly. King Richard frowned. "There is nothing to discuss with her. She is a child. She will do as we command. She deserves to know," Catherine insisted. "I will tell her myself." The king's face turned red. "You will do no such thing. You will frighten the child with talk of marriage and kingdoms. She is too young to understand." Catherine stood up. All the men at the table looked shocked. Queens did not stand up during council meetings. Queens did not argue with kings. "If I cannot speak to my own daughter, then what kind of mother am I?" Catherine's voice was loud now. "What kind of queen?" The room was silent. Everyone stared at her. King Richard stood up slowly. His face was dark with anger. "You forget yourself, Catherine." "No, husband. You forget that Elena is not just a princess. She is a little girl who still plays with dolls. She is a child who cries when she falls down. She is our daughter." Lord Harrison cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should take a short break." "No," the king said. "We will finish this now." Catherine's hands stopped shaking. Something changed inside her. She looked at her husband. She looked at all the advisors. These powerful men who made decisions about war and peace. These men who decided the future of the kingdom. But they had never held Elena when she had nightmares. They had never wiped her tears. They had never heard her laugh. "I will speak to Elena," Catherine said one more time, "and I will hear what she has to say. Then, and only then, will I give my answer to this council." She turned and walked toward the door. The guards opened it quickly. Behind her, she heard the king slam his hand on the table. "Catherine," he shouted, but she kept walking. Her purple gown swept behind her like a river. Her head was high. Her heart was pounding. For the first time in her life as queen, Catherine had said no, and everything was about to change.
Catherine walked quickly through the palace hallways. Her shoes clicked on the marble floor. Her heart was still beating fast from the council meeting. She needed to find Elena. "Margaret!" Catherine called out when she saw her lady-in-waiting. "Where is Princess Elena?" "In the rose garden, your majesty," Margaret answered. "She is playing with Lady Anne's daughter, little Charlotte." Catherine lifted her dress and walked faster. She went down the stone steps and into the garden. The smell of roses filled the air. She could hear children laughing. There, under a big oak tree, Elena was sitting on the grass. Her golden hair was messy. Her white dress had dirt on it. She was making a crown from flowers. Next to her sat Charlotte, a girl of 6 years old. "Mama!" Elena shouted when she saw the queen. She jumped up and ran toward her mother. Her little arms wrapped around Catherine's waist. Catherine hugged her daughter tight. She closed her eyes. Her baby. Her sweet, innocent child. "Mama, look!" Elena held up the flower crown. "I made this for you. Do you like it?" Catherine knelt down. She was now at eye level with her daughter. "It is beautiful, my darling." Elena placed the crown on her mother's head. Then she giggled. "Now you are the flower queen." Catherine smiled, but her eyes were sad. "Elena, can we talk? Just you and me?" "Of course, Mama." Elena turned to Charlotte. "I will play with you later, okay?" Charlotte nodded and ran off to chase a butterfly. Catherine took Elena's small hand. They walked to a stone bench near the fountain. The water made gentle sounds as it splashed. Birds were singing in the trees. "Am I in trouble?" Elena asked. Her green eyes looked worried. "Is it because I got my dress dirty?" "No, sweetheart. You are not in trouble." Catherine squeezed her daughter's hand. "I need to tell you something important." Elena sat up straight. She tried to look serious, like a grown-up. "What is it, Mama?" Catherine did not know how to begin. How do you tell a 7-year-old child about marriage? About duty? About sacrifice? "Do you remember when I told you stories about princesses?" Catherine asked. Elena nodded excitedly. "Yes. The ones who marry princes and live happily ever after." Catherine's heart broke a little. "Yes, those stories. Elena, in real life, sometimes princesses do marry princes. But it is different from the stories." "How is it different?" Elena asked. She picked a daisy and started pulling the petals off one by one. "Sometimes princesses marry princes to help their kingdoms. To keep people safe. To make peace between countries." Elena looked confused. "I don't understand, Mama." Catherine took a deep breath. "There is a prince in another kingdom. His name is Marcus. He is 16 years old. The advisors want you to marry him one day. When you are older." Elena dropped the daisy. Her mouth opened in surprise. "Marry? But I am only 7. "Not now, my love." When you turn 16. That is 9 years from now. 9 years, Elena whispered. She looked down at her hands. They were small and dirty from playing in the garden. Do I have to? That was the question. The question Catherine had been asking herself. Your father thinks it is best for the kingdom, Catherine said carefully. The advisors think it will bring peace. But what do you think, Mama? Elena's green eyes looked up at her mother. Those innocent, trusting eyes. Catherine felt tears coming. She blinked them away. I think you should have a choice. I think you should be happy. Then I don't want to marry him, Elena said simply. I don't even know him. How can I marry someone I don't know? That is what I said to your father, Catherine whispered. Elena stood up from the bench. Even though she was small, she looked brave. I want to choose who I marry, Mama. Like in the stories. I want to fall in love first. Catherine pulled her daughter close. She held her tight. Oh, my sweet girl. You are so brave. So much braver than I was at your age. What happened when you were my age, Mama? Catherine was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. When I was 7, just like you, my parents told me I would marry your father one day. I cried for 3 days. But no one listened to me. No one asked what I wanted. That's not fair, Elena said. Her voice was angry. No, it was not fair, Catherine agreed. But that is how things were done. How things are still done. But you are the queen, Elena said. Can't you change it? Catherine smiled sadly. Even queens must follow rules, my darling. That's silly, Elena said. She crossed her arms. If I am queen one day, I will change all the silly rules. Catherine laughed. A real laugh, not a polite royal laugh. I believe you will, Elena. I truly believe you will. They sat together on the bench for a long time. Neither of them spoke. They just listened to the fountain and the birds. The sun was warm on their faces. Finally, Elena asked, Mama, what are we going to do? Catherine looked at her daughter. This brave, strong little girl. Then she made a decision. A decision that would change everything. We are going to fight, Catherine said. Her voice was strong and clear. We are going to fight for your right to choose. For your right to be happy. But how? Papa is the king. He makes all the decisions. Catherine stood up. She took off the flower crown Elena had made for her. She placed it gently on Elena's head. Your father is the king, yes. But I am the queen. And I have power too. I just forgot about it for a while. Catherine's blue eyes were bright now. Determined. But I remember now. Elena smiled. Are you going to be like the queens in the stories? The brave ones? Yes, my darling. I am going to be exactly like those queens. Catherine took Elena's hand. Together, they walked back toward the palace. The mother and daughter. The queen and the princess. Behind them, flower petals floated on the fountain water. The roses swayed in the gentle breeze. And in that moment, something changed in Westmore Palace. Something powerful. Something that could not be stopped. A mother's love had awakened. And nothing, not kings, not advisors, not tradition, could stand against it. 3 days had passed since Catherine spoke with Elena in the garden. 3 days of silence between the queen and the king. 3 days of tension in Westmore Palace. Catherine sat in her private study. Papers were spread across her desk. She had been reading the old laws of the kingdom. Reading and reading until her eyes hurt. There was a knock on the door. Come in, Catherine said. Margaret entered carrying a tea tray. Your Majesty, you have been in here since dawn. You must eat something. Catherine looked up. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. I cannot eat, Margaret. Not until I find what I am looking for. What are you looking for, my queen? Catherine pointed to the old books and scrolls on her desk. A way to save my daughter. A law. A rule. Something that can help us. Margaret set down the tea tray. She looked worried. The king is very angry. He has called another council meeting for tomorrow morning. He wants an answer. Let him be angry, Catherine said. But her hands were shaking again. Margaret came closer. She lowered her voice. Your Majesty, may I speak freely? Always, my old friend. You cannot win against the king. Against all those powerful men. This is how things have always been done. Perhaps it is better to accept it. Catherine stood up suddenly. The chair scraped against the floor. No! I will not accept it. My daughter deserves better. All daughters deserve better. But what can you do? Margaret asked sadly. Catherine picked up one of the old scrolls. This is what I can do. She showed Margaret the ancient writing. This is the Charter of Queens, written 200 years ago. It says that a queen has the right to protect her children, to speak for them in matters of marriage until they turn 18. Margaret's eyes went wide. I have never heard of this law. Because no one remembers it, Catherine said. Because no queen has used it in 100 years. But it is still a law. It is still valid. Will the king accept this? Catherine's jaw was set firm. He will have no choice. The law is the law. That night, Catherine could not sleep. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. In the next room, she could hear Richard pacing. He was angry. Very angry. Tomorrow would be the battle of her life. When morning came, Catherine dressed in her finest gown. It was deep blue, the color of royalty. She wore her crown, the heavy one with diamonds. She wanted to look like a queen. A powerful queen. Margaret helped her get ready. You look beautiful, Your Majesty. And strong. I feel terrified, Catherine whispered. Brave people are always terrified, Margaret said. That is what makes them brave. Catherine walked to the council room. Her heart pounded with each step. The guards opened the doors. Inside, all 12 advisors were already seated. The king sat at the head of the table. His face was dark like a storm cloud. But Catherine was not alone this time. Behind her walked 3 women. Lady Elizabeth, the Duke's widow. Lady Mary, a woman who owned much land. And Dame Victoria, the kingdom's most respected scholar. These were powerful women. Women who had sent messages to Catherine, offering their support. The men at the table looked surprised. Women never came to council meetings. Never. What is the meaning of this? Lord Harrison demanded. Catherine walked to her seat. She did not sit down. She stood tall. I have come to give my answer about Princess Elena's engagement. King Richard leaned forward. And? My answer is no. There will be no engagement. Not now. Not when she is 16. Not until Elena herself chooses. The room exploded with angry voices. Outrageous. The Queen has lost her mind. This is treason. The king slammed his fist on the table. Silence! Everyone stopped talking. Richard stood up. He was tall and intimidating. Catherine, you will agree to this engagement. That is my command as your king. Catherine's voice was calm but strong. And I refuse. That is my right as queen and as Elena's mother. You have no such right, Lord Harrison shouted. Catherine pulled out the old scroll from her sleeve. Actually, I do. The Charter of Queens, written in the year 1625. It clearly states that a queen has the right to protect her children from marriage arrangements until they reach the age of 18. She unrolled the scroll and began to read the ancient words. Her voice was clear and loud. The advisors looked at each other. Some of them looked confused. Others looked angry. Lord Harrison grabbed the scroll. He read it quickly. His face turned pale. This is very old. Surely it is no longer valid. It was never revoked. Dame Victoria spoke up. She was a legal expert. I have checked all the royal records. This law still stands. King Richard's face turned red. I am the king. My word is law. Your word is law in many things, husband, Catherine said. But not in this. Not when an older law protects our daughter. The king looked around the room. He was looking for support. But the advisors were quiet now. They knew Catherine was right. The law was on her side. This is rebellion, Richard said quietly. Dangerously. No, Catherine said. This is love. This is a mother protecting her child. Richard stared at his wife. He had never seen her like this. So strong. So fearless. The three women behind Catherine stood firm. They did not speak. But their presence said everything. The queen was not alone. Finally, after what felt like forever, the king sat down. He looked tired. Old. The council is dismissed, he said quietly. The advisors stood up and left quickly. They did not want to be in that room anymore. Soon, only Catherine and Richard remained. Richard looked at his wife. You have humiliated me in front of my council. I have saved our daughter, Catherine replied. The kingdom of Northmoor will be angry. They may declare war. Then we will find another way to make peace. A way that does not sacrifice Elena. Richard was quiet for a long time. Then he said something Catherine never expected. When did you become so strong? Catherine walked to the window. She looked out at the gardens where Elena was playing. When I realized that being a good queen means more than just obeying. It means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Richard joined her at the window. They watched their daughter playing in the sunshine. She looks like you, Richard said softly. She is braver than me, Catherine whispered. Richard took a deep breath. What if you are right? What if there is a better way? Catherine turned to look at her husband. Was that doubt in his voice? Or perhaps, understanding? I know I am right, Catherine said. And deep down, so do you. Richard did not answer. But he did not argue either. And in that moment, something shifted between them. Not love, perhaps, but respect. Real respect. Outside, Elena's laughter floated through the window. Pure and innocent and free. Catherine had won the battle. But the war for change had only just begun. 2 weeks passed after the council meeting. News spread quickly through the kingdom. The queen had said no to the king. The queen had used an ancient law. The queen was protecting Princess Elena. People in the villages talked about it in the market squares. Women whispered about it while washing clothes by the river. Farmers discussed it in the fields. Catherine did not know how the people would react. Would they think she was a bad queen? Would they be angry? But then the letters started arriving. Every morning, guards brought bags full of letters to the palace. Letters from women all over the kingdom. Letters from mothers. From daughters. From grandmothers. Catherine sat in her study, reading them one by one. Margaret helped her open the envelopes. Your Majesty, one letter said. Thank you for being brave. My daughter was married at 15 to a man she did not know. She cried every day. You are giving hope to all mothers. Another letter read, I am 70 years old. I was married when I was 12. I never had a choice. Please keep fighting for Princess Elena. Keep fighting for all of us. Catherine's eyes filled with tears as she read. So many women. So many stories. So much pain. Look at this one, Margaret said, handing Catherine a letter written in shaky handwriting. It is from a little girl. She is only 8 years old. Catherine read it aloud. Dear Queen Catherine, I am Emma. I heard you saved Princess Elena from marrying someone she does not know. When I grow up, I want to be brave like you. Thank you for showing me that queens can be strong. Catherine pressed the letter to her heart. We are doing the right thing, Margaret. I know we are. But not everyone was happy. Lord Harrison and some of the other advisors were spreading rumors. They said the Queen was causing trouble. They said she was making the kingdom weak. They said King Richard was losing control. One afternoon, Catherine was walking through the palace gardens with Elena. The princess was picking flowers and singing a little song. Suddenly, a royal messenger ran up to them. He was breathing hard. He looked scared. Your Majesty! There is a crowd gathering at the palace gates. Catherine's heart jumped. A crowd? What do they want? I do not know, Your Majesty. They are asking to see you. Catherine looked at Elena. Stay here with Margaret. I will return soon. But Mama! Please, Elena. I need you to be safe. Catherine walked quickly to the front of the palace. Her guards followed her. When she reached the main gates, she stopped and gasped. Hundreds of people were there. Maybe thousands. Men, women, and children. They filled the entire square in front of the palace. Catherine's hands went cold. Were they angry? Were they going to attack? But then she saw their faces. They were smiling. Many women were crying happy tears. Some were holding signs. One sign said, "Long live Queen Catherine!" Another said, "Protect our daughters!" A woman in the front of the crowd called out, "Your Majesty! We came to support you! We came to say thank you!" Catherine could not believe it. All these people, they were here for her. She walked to the gate. The guards looked nervous, but Catherine signaled for them to open it just a little. "Why have you come?" Catherine asked the crowd. An old woman stepped forward. She had gray hair and kind eyes. "Your Majesty, you gave us hope. You showed us that even queens can stand up for what is right. You showed us that our daughters matter. Our voices matter!" Another woman shouted. "Our choices matter!" A young girl yelled. The crowd began to cheer. The sound was like thunder. It echoed off the palace walls. Catherine felt tears running down her face. She was not alone. She had never been alone. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for believing." The crowd cheered even louder. But from a palace window above, Lord Harrison watched with angry eyes. Next to him stood two other advisers. "This is getting out of control," Lord Harrison muttered. "The Queen has turned the people against us. Against the natural order." Another adviser agreed. "Women are becoming bold. Asking for rights. For choices. This is dangerous. We must do something," the third adviser said. "We must stop this before it spreads further." Lord Harrison smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "I have a plan. The king listens to us, not to his wife. We will convince him that the Queen is causing chaos. That she is making the kingdom unstable. But what about the ancient laws she found? Laws can be reinterpreted," Lord Harrison said slowly. "Or new laws can be made to replace old ones. The king has that power." The three men nodded to each other. They began to plot. Meanwhile, Catherine returned to Elena in the garden. The princess ran to her mother. "Mama! I heard the people cheering. What happened?" Catherine knelt down and hugged her daughter. "Something wonderful, my darling. The people are on our side. They believe in what we are doing. So I don't have to marry Prince Marcus? Not if you don't want to," Catherine said firmly. "I promise you, Elena. I will protect your right to choose." Elena smiled brightly. "You are the best mama in the whole world." That night, Catherine could not sleep again. But this time it was not from fear. It was from hope. The people supported her. She was not fighting alone. But she did not know about Lord Harrison's plan. She did not know that danger was coming. In his private chambers, King Richard sat at his desk. Lord Harrison stood before him, speaking in a low, persuasive voice. "Your Majesty, the Queen has embarrassed you. The people are cheering for her, not for you. They think she is the true power in this kingdom." Richard's jaw tightened. His pride was hurt. He had felt it these past weeks. "What do you suggest?" Richard asked. Lord Harrison leaned closer. "Create a new royal decree. One that overrides the Charter of Queens. You have the power to do it. You are the king." Richard was quiet. Part of him knew this was wrong. Part of him remembered Catherine's brave words. Part of him was even proud of his wife. But another part, the part that wanted control, that wanted respect, that wanted power, That part was listening to Lord Harrison. "Give me time to think," Richard finally said. "Of course, Your Majesty." Lord Harrison bowed and left the room. Richard sat alone in the darkness. In one hand was his power as king. In the other hand was his love for his family. He did not know which one to choose. And tomorrow, everything would change again. The storm was coming. The next morning, the entire palace was buzzing with whispers. King Richard had called an emergency gathering in the Great Hall. Not just the council. Everyone. The advisors, the guards, the servants, the nobles, everyone. Catherine received the message while having breakfast with Elena. "Mama, what does it mean?" Elena asked, her green eyes worried. "I do not know, my darling," Catherine said. But her heart was racing. Something big was about to happen. Margaret helped Catherine dress in her royal robes. "Whatever happens today, Your Majesty, you have already won. The people love you. History will remember you. But will Elena be safe?" Catherine whispered. "That is all that matters." At noon, the great hall was packed with people. Catherine walked in with her head high. She wore her crown and her finest jewels. If this was to be a battle, she would look like a queen. Elena walked beside her, holding her mother's hand tightly. Catherine had wanted Elena to stay in her room, but the princess had insisted on coming. "I am brave, Mama," Elena had said. "Just like you." King Richard sat on his throne at the front of the hall. Next to him was an empty throne, Catherine's throne. Lord Harrison stood beside the king, holding a scroll with the red seal. Catherine's stomach dropped. A new decree. They had done it. "People of Westmore," Richard's voice boomed through the hall. "I have called you here today to witness an important announcement." The crowd went silent. Everyone held their breath. Lord Harrison stepped forward. "His Majesty the King has created a new royal decree. It states that in matters of royal marriages and alliances, the King's word is final and absolute. No other law can override his decision." Gasps filled the hall. Women began to cry. Some men shook their heads sadly. Catherine felt her world crumbling. All her fighting. All her hope. It was ending. Lord Harrison continued. "This decree overrides all previous laws, including the outdated Charter of Queens. Princess Elena's engagement to Prince Marcus of Northmoor will proceed as planned." "No!" Elena's small voice rang out in the hall. Everyone turned to look at the little princess. Tears streamed down her face, but she stood tall. "I don't want to marry him. I don't want to!" Elena shouted. Richard looked at his daughter. Really looked at her. Saw her tears. Saw her fear. Saw her bravery. Catherine squeezed Elena's hand. She stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I beg you." "Silence," Richard said. But his voice was not angry. It was broken. He stood up from his throne. He walked down the steps. The entire hall watched him. Richard stopped in front of Elena. He knelt down, so he was at her level. The king, kneeling before a 7-year-old girl. "Elena," he said softly. "Look at me." Elena looked up at her father with wet eyes. "Do you truly not want this marriage?" Richard asked. "No, Papa. I want to choose for myself. When I am older. When I am ready." Richard's eyes filled with tears. The strong king. The powerful ruler. He was crying. "I was wrong," Richard said, his voice shaking. "I have been so very wrong." He stood up and faced the crowd. "I have been thinking only about the kingdom. About power. About alliances. But I forgot the most important thing." He looked at Catherine. "My wife reminded me. She showed me that protecting our children, giving them choice, giving them love, that is what makes a kingdom truly strong." Lord Harrison's face went red. "Your Majesty, you cannot." "I can." Richard's voice thundered. "I am the king, am I not? You just said my word is final and absolute." Lord Harrison went silent. Richard took the scroll from Lord Harrison's hands. The new decree. The one that would have destroyed everything Catherine fought for. In front of everyone, Richard tore the scroll in half. The crowd gasped. Then they began to cheer. The sound shook the walls of the great hall. Richard walked to Catherine. "Forgive me," he said. "Forgive me for being a fool. For being a coward. You were brave when I was not." Catherine's tears fell freely now. "You are being brave now. That is what matters." Richard turned to address the hall again. "I am making a new law today. A real one. From this day forward, no royal child of Westmore will be forced into marriage. They will choose their own partner when they are 18 years old. They will choose based on love, not duty." The women in the hall cried with joy. Men clapped. Children cheered. Furthermore, Richard continued, "The Charter of Queens is hereby restored and honored. Queens will have equal voice in all matters concerning their children." Lord Harrison looked furious, but he could say nothing. The other advisers who had supported him looked down at their feet. Richard lifted Elena into his arms. "My daughter, I am sorry. I tried to take away your choice. Your freedom. Can you forgive your old father?" Elena wrapped her small arms around Richard's neck. "I forgive you, Papa." The hall erupted in applause. People were hugging, crying, celebrating. Catherine walked to her family. Richard reached out his hand to her. She took it. For the first time in their marriage, they stood together. Not just as king and queen, but as partners, as equals, as parents who loved their child. That night, after all the celebrations ended, Catherine tucked Elena into bed. "Mama," Elena said sleepily, "what you did, it helped other girls too, didn't it?" "Yes, my darling. It helped many girls. Many women." "Good," Elena yawned. "That makes me happy." Catherine kissed her daughter's forehead. "You made me brave, Elena. You gave me the courage to fight. We were brave together," Elena whispered. Then she fell asleep with a smile on her face. Catherine walked to her chambers. Richard was waiting for her. "Today was extraordinary," he said. "Today was just the beginning," Catherine replied. "There is still so much to change. So much to fix." Richard nodded. "Then we will change it. Together." And for the first time in many years, they smiled at each other. A real smile. Full of hope. 3 years later. Princess Elena was now 10 years old. She studied history, languages, and mathematics. But she also studied something new, the laws of the kingdom. She wanted to understand how to make things fair for everyone. Queen Catherine had opened a school for girls in the capital city. Girls from poor families could now learn to read and write. Could learn about the world. Could dream of futures beyond marriage. King Richard had become known as Richard the Just. He listened to his people. He changed old, unfair laws. He worked with Catherine as true partners. And the Charter of Queens was displayed in the Great Hall for everyone to see. A reminder that love and courage could change the world. Elena often visited the school her mother had created. The girls there called her Princess of Hope. One day, as Elena walked through the school, a little girl asked her, "Princess, why did your mother fight so hard for you?" Elena smiled. "Because she knew that every girl deserves to choose her own path. Every girl deserves to be free. Every girl deserves to be heard." "Even us?" the little girl asked. "Even poor girls like me?" Elena knelt down. "Especially you. Because every girl matters. Every voice matters. Every dream matters." The little girl hugged Elena. And in that moment, the future of Westmore Kingdom shined bright. Catherine had started a revolution. Not with swords. Not with war. But with love. With courage. With a mother's fierce protection of her child. And that revolution would change everything. The end.